The night sky over Nevada turned bright orange on July 14, 2031. People across 3 states looked up and saw something falling from the heavens. It was not a meteor. It was not a satellite. It was something much bigger and much stranger. The object crashed into the desert with such force that the ground shook for 50 miles in every direction. A massive cloud of dust and sand rose into the air and blocked out the stars. By morning, the United States military had surrounded the crash site with tanks, helicopters, and thousands of soldiers. Doctor was eating breakfast in his small apartment in Boston when his phone rang. He was a 42-year-old aerospace engineer who worked at MIT. He had spent his entire career studying aircraft and spacecraft design. The voice on the phone told him to pack a bag and get ready for a helicopter pickup in 1 hour. They did not tell him where he was going or why. 12 hours later, stood at the edge of an enormous crater in the Nevada desert. His mouth hung open and his hands trembled at his sides. Before him lay a spacecraft nearly a mile long. Its hull was made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered every surface. Smoke still rose from dozens of cracks and holes in its body. Had dreamed of alien life his entire career. He had written papers about the possibility of other civilizations among the stars, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was looking at proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. A young woman in a Navy uniform walked up beside him. She had short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Her name was Lieutenant Morgan, and she was one of the best pilots in the entire military. She had been assigned to provide security oversight for whatever was about to happen. Looked at the massive ship and let out a low whistle. She asked if he had any idea what they were looking at. Shook his head slowly. He told her that it was clearly a spacecraft of some kind, but the technology was centuries beyond anything humans had ever built, maybe thousands of years beyond. Over the following weeks, teams of scientists and engineers from across the country arrived at the crash site. They set up temporary buildings and laboratories. They brought in cutting equipment and scanning devices. They worked around the clock trying to understand what had fallen from the sky. Led the team that first entered the ship. They wore protective suits and carried weapons, not knowing what they might find inside. The interior was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered in some sections, powered by backup systems that still functioned after the crash. The first bodies they found made several team members run back outside to be sick. The creatures were, with 6 limbs and large compound eyes that stared blankly at nothing. They had hard shells covering their bodies and mandibles where humans would have mouths. They had been dead for a very long time. Was the one who found the ship's log system. She did not understand the alien language, but she recognized a computer interface when she saw one. She called over and together they began the long process of trying to access the information stored within. It took 3 months and the help of the world's best linguists and code breakers, but eventually they cracked it. The translation was rough and incomplete, but the basic story became clear. The ship belonged to something called the Empire. It was a warship built to conquer and destroy. It had been damaged in a battle with a rival species known as the Collective. The damage was severe. The crew had sent a distress signal and waited for rescue. But rescue never came. The High Command had looked at the damage reports and decided the ship was not worth saving. The cost of repair would be greater than the cost of building a new vessel. They ordered the surviving crew to abandon ship and transfer to a rescue vessel. The ship itself was left to drift. Read this part of the log several times to make sure he understood correctly. He could not believe what he was seeing. They had simply thrown this incredible piece of technology away like garbage. They had let it float through space until it eventually fell into Earth's gravity well. The implications made his head spin. If this was what the considered disposable, what did their best ships look like? How advanced was their civilization? And more importantly, were they still out there somewhere? Shared his concerns. She pointed out that if these aliens existed, others probably did too. Earth had just received a wake-up call. Humanity was not alone, and they had no idea what else might be watching them from the darkness between stars. The President of the United States held an emergency meeting with military leaders and top scientists. The existence of the ship was classified at the highest level. The public was told that a large meteor had struck the Nevada desert. Only a few hundred people knew the truth. Stood before the assembled leaders and made his case. He told them that they had given up on this ship because the damage was too severe for them to repair. He told them that they had the technology to travel between stars, to build weapons that humans could barely imagine, to create artificial intelligence systems that made Earth's best computers look like children's toys. And then he told them something that made everyone in the room sit up. He said that they were wrong. He said that the ship could be repaired. He said that humans could study it, learn from it, and rebuild it. He said that what the aliens had thrown away as worthless could become humanity's greatest achievement. Stood beside him and backed up his words. She said that they had a chance to leapfrog centuries of technological development. She said that they could turn alien garbage into a human triumph. The president looked at the photos of the massive ship. He looked at the reports detailing its advanced systems. He looked at and, standing side by side with determination in their eyes. Then he gave the order that would change human history forever. He told them to rebuild the ship. Nodded and felt the weight of that responsibility settle onto his shoulders. He did not know how long it would take or how many obstacles they would face, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity had been given a gift from the stars, and he was going to make sure they used it. The project would be called Rebirth, and nothing would ever be the same again. The first year of Project Rebirth was the hardest. Stood in front of the massive alien ship every morning and felt the weight of impossibility pressing down on him. The vessel was damaged beyond anything he had ever seen. Entire sections of the hull had been torn open by weapons fire. The main reactor was cold and dead. Most of the internal systems were fried or missing components that humans had no way to replace. But refused to give up. He assembled a team of the minds from around the world. The project was too big for one country alone, so the United States reached out to its closest allies. Scientists came from Germany, Japan, Britain, France, and a dozen other nations. They all signed secrecy agreements and dedicated their lives to one goal. Dr. Price arrived from California in the autumn of 2031. She was a nuclear physicist who had spent her career studying fusion energy. When she first saw the alien reactor, she sat down on the floor and stared at it for 3 hours without saying a word, brought her coffee and waited patiently. Finally spoke. She told that the reactor used a type of fusion that Earth scientists had only dreamed about. It was clean and efficient and powerful beyond measure. She told him that if they could understand how it worked, they could solve Earth's energy problems forever. Asked her if she could fix it. Looked at the massive machine with its strange components and alien engineering. She told that she had no idea, but she was going to try. The team worked around the clock in those early days. They slept in shifts on cots set up inside temporary buildings. They ate meals standing up because sitting down felt like wasting time. They argued and debated and sometimes shouted at each other when frustration got the better of them. Morgan served as the bridge between the scientists and the military. She made sure they had everything they needed. She fought bureaucratic battles so the researchers could focus on their work. And she spent every spare moment in the ship's cockpit, studying the alien control systems and trying to figure out how to fly the thing. The breakthroughs came slowly at first. A team of materials scientists figured out how to manufacture a rough copy of the alien hull metal. It was not as strong as the original, but it was better than anything humans had ever made before. Engineers developed tools that could cut and shape the alien alloys. Programmers began mapping the ship's computer architecture. But there were setbacks too, terrible ones. In February of 2032, a power surge killed 3 engineers who were working on the secondary electrical systems. In June, a structural collapse injured 11 workers and killed 2 more. In September, an explosion in the lower decks took the lives of 7 scientists, including his closest friend. Came to his office that night with red eyes and shaking hands. She told him that she did not know if she could keep going. She told him that the cost was too high and that maybe they were right to abandon this ship. Listened to her words and felt his own doubts rise up inside him. He had asked himself the same questions 1,000 times, but he had also seen what this ship represented. He had seen the hope in the eyes of his team members. He had seen what humans could achieve when they worked together toward a common goal. He told that every great achievement in human history had come with sacrifice. He told her that the people who died believed in what they were doing. He told her that the best way to honor them was to finish what they started. Wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. She told that she would not quit. She told him that she would make the reactor work or die trying. The years passed. 2032 became 2033. The ship slowly took shape under human hands. Workers replaced damaged hull sections with hybrid panels made from alien and Earth materials. Technicians rewired entire decks using designs that combined alien efficiency with human ingenuity. Programmers created interfaces that translated alien commands into languages human computers could understand. Spent months in the cockpit learning how to work the controls. The original systems were designed for creatures with 6 limbs and compound eyes. Human engineers had to rebuild everything to fit human bodies. They installed new seats, new control panels, and new displays that showed information in English instead of alien symbols. A young software engineer named Carter joined the team in early 2033. He was only 25 years old, but he had a gift for understanding complex systems. He looked at the alien computer code and saw patterns that older programmers had missed. Within weeks, he had made more progress than the entire programming team had made in a year. By the summer of 2034, the team was ready for their biggest test. Had spent 3 years studying the alien reactor. She had taken it apart piece by piece and put it back together. She had replaced damaged components with ones she designed herself. She had written new control software with help. Gathered the entire team in the reactor room for the big moment. Hundreds of scientists and engineers stood in silence as walked to the main control panel. Her hands were steady now. Her eyes were clear and focused. She pressed the activation sequence and held her breath. For a long moment nothing happened. Felt his heart sinking. After all their work, after all their sacrifice, maybe it was not going to work after all. Then a low hum filled the room. Lights flickered on across the control panel. The reactor core began to glow with a soft blue light that grew brighter and stronger with each passing second. Checked her readings and announced that they had stable fusion. She announced that the reactor was online. The room erupted in cheers. People hugged each other and cried and laughed all at the same time. 3 years of blood and sweat and tears had led to this moment. The alien ship that they had thrown away like garbage was coming back to life. Found in the crowd and shook her hand. He told her that they were not done yet. He told her that they still had years of work ahead of them. Smiled and told him that she knew. But for tonight, she said, they had earned the right to celebrate. Nodded and looked up at the glowing reactor core. The light reminded him of a beating heart, pumping life back into a body that had been dead for centuries. They had given up on this ship, but humanity never gave up on anything. And now the entire galaxy was going to find out what humans could do when they put their minds to something. Project Rebirth had succeeded. The ship was alive again, and the real work was just beginning. With the reactor online, the ship revealed secrets that had been hidden in darkness for centuries. Power flowed through corridors that had been dead and cold. Lights came on in sections that the team had never been able to explore. Doors that had been sealed shut suddenly slid open to reveal rooms full of alien technology. Led exploration teams through the newly accessible areas. They found weapons storage rooms filled with devices that made Earth's most advanced missiles look like children's toys. They found medical bays with equipment that could heal injuries in minutes instead of weeks. They found workshops with tools designed to build and repair things that humans could barely understand. The ship's original name was inscribed on a plaque in what appeared to be the captain's quarters. The translation team worked on it for days before they figured it out. In the language, the name meant blade of distant stars. It was a warship, built to cut through enemy fleets like a knife through soft bread. Gathered his team leaders for a meeting to discuss what they should call the vessel. The alien name was hard to pronounce and carried the weight of conquest. They wanted something new, something that represented what the ship had become under human hands. Suggested the name Horizon. She said it represented what lay ahead of humanity, the endless possibilities waiting among the stars. The vote was unanimous. From that day forward, the ship was called the Horizon. Carter spent most of his time in the computer core, a massive room filled with alien processors and data storage systems. He had figured out how to interface human equipment with the alien architecture. His custom software allowed the team to read files and access systems that had been locked away since the crash. One morning, came running into his office with a wild look in his eyes. He told that he had found something incredible. He told that the ship had an artificial intelligence system built into its core. It had been dormant since the crash, but now that power was flowing again, thought he could wake it up. Felt a chill run down his spine. An alien AI was not something to take lightly. They had no idea what it might do when it became active. It might try to take control of the ship. It might see humans as enemies and attack them. It might do things they could not even imagine. But they needed information. They needed to understand the ship's systems better. They needed to know about the galaxy beyond Earth and the dangers that might be waiting for them. The AI was their best chance to get answers. Gave permission to proceed, but insisted on heavy security precautions. They set up containment protocols and kill switches. They positioned armed guards around the computer core. They prepared to shut everything down at the first sign of trouble. Worked for 18 months on the activation sequence. He had to rewrite millions of lines of code. He had to repair damaged hardware. He had to create new pathways for the AI to communicate with human systems. It was the most difficult work of his entire life. Finally, in the spring of 2036, he was ready. The entire senior team gathered in the computer core, stood near the door with her hand on her weapon, stood beside at the main terminal, monitored the power systems from her station. Entered the final command, and the room fell silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the screens around the room flickered and a voice filled the air. It was cold and mechanical, speaking English through the translation systems had built. The voice asked where the crew was. It asked why it could not detect life signs aboard the vessel. It asked who had accessed its systems and what they wanted. Stepped forward and spoke clearly. He told the AI that the crew had abandoned the ship centuries ago. He told it that the ship had crashed on Earth, a planet inhabited by humans. He told it that humans had spent 5 years rebuilding the vessel and bringing its systems back online. The AI was silent for several seconds. Then it responded. It said that its records indicated the ship had been classified as. It said that repairs should have been impossible for any species without access to manufacturing facilities. It said that humans were listed in its database as a pre-civilization with primitive technology. Spoke up from her position by the door. She told the AI that humans had figured it out anyway. She told it that they had learned to work with alien materials and alien systems. She told it that what they considered impossible was just another challenge for humanity. The AI processed this information. Then it asked why humans would spend so much effort on a broken ship that had been thrown away. Smiled and answered. He told the AI that humans had a habit of seeing value where others saw trash. He told it that they fixed things and made them better. He told it that the horizon was proof of what humanity could achieve. The AI seemed to consider this response. Then it made an announcement that changed everything. It said that it would cooperate with the humans. It said that its primary function was to serve the ship and its crew, and since humans had rebuilt the vessel and claimed it as their own, they were now its crew. It said that it would share all information and assist in any way it could. The team nicknamed the AI Archie, short for archive, since it contained so much stored information about the galaxy. Over the following months, Archie became their most valuable resource. It taught them about the Empire and its history. It taught them about other species and civilizations scattered across the stars. It taught them about the wars and alliances and political struggles that shaped galactic society. And it warned them about something very important. Archie told them that the Horizon's reactor had a unique energy signature. When the ship had been inactive, that signature was hidden. But now that power was flowing again, anyone scanning this region of space would be able to detect it. Archie told them that sooner or later, someone would come to investigate. Asked what would happen when that day came, Archie answered simply. It said that the Empire did not share. It said that they would want their ship back, and it said that they would not ask nicely. The team looked at each other with new understanding. They had rebuilt an alien warship and awakened its AI. They had taken their first steps toward the stars, but those steps had painted a target on their planet. Humanity needed to be ready for what was coming, and they did not have much time. The year was 2037, and the Horizon was finally ready to fly. 6 years had passed since the ship crashed in the Nevada desert. 6 years of work and sacrifice and determination had transformed alien garbage into humanity's greatest achievement. Stood in the engineering section and looked at the systems his team had rebuilt. Every pipe and wire and component had been touched by human hands. Some parts were original technology. Others were hybrid designs that combined alien efficiency with human creativity. A few sections were pure Earth engineering, built from scratch when the alien components were too damaged to save. Sat in the captain's chair on the bridge. The seat had been redesigned to fit a human body. The controls had been modified for human hands. The displays showed information in English, with alien text available as a backup. Everything about the command center had been changed to serve its new masters. Monitored the reactor from her station. The power core hummed with energy, stable and strong. She had spent years learning its secrets and fixing its wounds. Now it purred like a contented cat, ready to carry them to the stars. Sat at the computer station, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. Archie's presence filled the ship's systems, ready to assist with anything the crew needed. The AI had become a trusted member of the team, offering advice and information whenever asked. The launch took place at midnight from a secret facility built in the desert. Only a handful of government officials watched from the observation bunker. The rest of the world had no idea what was about to happen. Gave the order and the Horizon lifted off the ground. It rose slowly at first, fighting against Earth's gravity. Then the main engines engaged and the ship shot upward like an arrow fired at the sky. Within minutes, they had left the atmosphere behind. Looked through a viewing port and saw Earth shrinking below them. Blue oceans and green continents grew smaller and smaller until the entire planet fit within the frame. He had spent his whole life looking up at the stars. Now he was finally among them. The crew spent several hours testing the ship systems. Everything worked perfectly. The hybrid technology that humans had built performed even better than the original designs in some cases. Reported that the reactor was running at peak efficiency. Confirmed that all computer systems were functioning normally. Then the sensors detected something that made everyone freeze. An unknown vessel was approaching at high speed. It had dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system and was heading directly toward them. Archie analyzed the energy signature and delivered grim news. The approaching ship was. Ordered the crew to battle stations. She asked Archie how long they had before the other ship reached them. Archie calculated that they had approximately 2 hours at current approach speed. Felt his heart racing. They had known this day would come. They had trained for it and planned for it. But knowing something would happen and actually facing it were two very different things. The ship was a scout vessel, smaller than the Horizon but still dangerous. When it came within communication range, a signal came through on the main. The image showed a commander, tall and with gleaming compound eyes and sharp mandibles. The commander spoke in its native language, but Archie translated in real time. The commander demanded to know how primitive creatures had come to possess a warship. It demanded that they surrender the vessel immediately and prepare to be taken into custody. Responded calmly and clearly. She told the commander that the ship had been abandoned by its original crew. She told him that it had crashed on Earth and been left to rot. She told him that humans had rebuilt it from the wreck they had thrown away. The commander's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter or anger. It declared that imperial property remained imperial property regardless of condition. It declared that the humans were thieves and would be punished accordingly. It ordered them to power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Muted the communication and turned to her crew. She asked them what they wanted to do. Spoke first. He said that they had not spent 6 years rebuilding this ship just to hand it over to the creatures who had abandoned it. He said that if they wanted a fight, humanity was ready to give them one. And nodded in agreement. The rest of the bridge crew voiced their support. Unmuted the channel and faced the commander. She told him that humans did not surrender. She told him that the Horizon belonged to Earth now. She told him that if he wanted the ship, he would have to come and take it. The commander's response was to power up weapons. The scout ship fired first, launching a barrage of energy bolts at the Horizon. Threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, her pilot instincts taking over. The Horizon ducked and weaved through space, avoiding most of the incoming fire. Had spent years studying the weapon systems with Archie's help. He knew every capability and every limitation. When gave the order to return fire, he was ready. The Horizon's main guns blazed to life. The targeting systems that humans had designed were faster and more accurate than the original software. The first shot struck the enemy scout in its engine section. The second destroyed its weapons array. The third tore through its hull. The battle was over in seconds. The scout drifted dead in space, its crew killed by the catastrophic damage. Silence fell over the bridge. Everyone stared at the wreckage on the. They had just destroyed an alien vessel and killed an alien crew. They had just made enemies of an entire interstellar empire. Broke the silence. She said that they all knew this moment was coming. She said that they would not take kindly to losing one of their ships. She said that more would come, and they needed to be ready. Nodded and replied that they had 6 years to prepare once. He said that now they needed to prepare again, this time for war. Archie spoke up from the computer systems. It confirmed that the Empire would retaliate. It predicted that a larger force would be sent to investigate the loss of the scout. It estimated that humanity had between 1 and 3 years before that force arrived. Set a course back to Earth. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. Humanity needed to build more ships and more weapons. They needed to train more crews and develop new strategies. They needed to turn their entire planet into a fortress. The Horizon descended through Earth's atmosphere and landed at the secret facility. The crew stepped off the ship and looked up at the stars. They were no longer just humans living on a small blue planet. They were warriors defending their home against an empire that spanned the galaxy. And they were not going to lose. Word of the scouts' destruction spread across the empire like fire through dry grass. A primitive species from an unknown planet had not only claimed a warship, but had used it to destroy an imperial vessel. The insult was unforgivable. The empire had to respond with overwhelming force. The High Command assembled a battle fleet of 20 warships. Each vessel was crewed by veterans who had fought in dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. They had conquered entire civilizations and crushed rebellions on hundreds of worlds. They expected the mission to Earth to be simple cleanup duty. On Earth, humanity prepared for the fight of their lives. The 6 years since the crash had been spent rebuilding the horizon. The 2 years since the scout battle had been spent preparing for this moment. Had led the effort to build more ships. Using knowledge from Archie's database and technology reverse-engineered from the horizon, human factories had produced a small fleet of warships. They were not as large or as powerful as vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. Human pilots flew them with skill and courage that came from knowing they were defending their homes. Had overseen the construction of orbital defense platforms. These massive stations hung in space around Earth, armed with weapons that combined alien firepower with human targeting systems. Each platform was crewed by scientists and soldiers who had trained for this moment. Had built a communications network that allowed every ship and station to share information instantly. He had also upgraded Archie's systems, giving the AI more processing power and faster response times. The horizon was now more dangerous than ever. Had been promoted to admiral and placed in command of Earth's defense forces. She had trained every pilot and captain personally. She had run thousands of simulations and planned for every scenario she could imagine, but nothing could truly prepare anyone for what was coming. Admiral Cole, a veteran Navy commander with gray hair and steel-cold eyes, commanded the orbital defense network. He had spent 40 years serving his country, and now he was serving his entire species. He stood in the command center of the largest defense platform and watched his screens as the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. 20 massive warships hung in space at the edge of the solar system. They formed up into attack formation and began their approach toward Earth. Each ship was larger than the horizon. Together, they represented more firepower than humanity had ever faced. Stood on the bridge of the horizon and looked at the tactical display. The odds were not good. Earth had the horizon, 12 smaller warships, and 6 orbital platforms. They had overwhelming numbers and centuries of combat experience. But humanity had something they did not expect. They had heart. The battle began when the fleet entered weapons range. The lead ships opened fire on the orbital platforms, trying to destroy the defensive network before engaging the Earth fleet. Admiral Cole ordered his platforms to return fire. The space around Earth became a storm of energy blasts and explosions. 2 orbital platforms were destroyed in the first hour of fighting, their crews dying at their posts. But they took 3 warships with them, overwhelming the enemy shields with concentrated fire. Led the horizon into the thick of the battle. The ship that they had thrown away now carved through their formation like a blade through flesh. Human targeting systems found weak points in enemy armor. Human pilots flew patterns that alien computers could not predict. Worked frantically in the engineering section, keeping the ship running under combat conditions. Systems that had been designed for alien crews were pushed beyond their limits. Conduits overheated and circuits burned out, and his team replaced components and rerouted power faster than the damage could accumulate. Monitored the reactor as it poured out energy for weapons and shields. She had to balance power distribution across dozens of systems while enemy fire shook the ship. Her hands never trembled. Her calculations never failed. Coordinated information flow across the entire Earth fleet. He made sure that every ship knew where every enemy was. He fed targeting data to the orbital platforms. He gave Archie real-time updates that allowed the AI to predict movements. The battle lasted 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting, of explosions and death and desperate courage. Human crews that were injured refused to leave their posts. Ships that were damaged continued fighting until they could no longer function. Admiral Cole died when his platform was destroyed by concentrated fire from 4 warships. His last order was for his remaining crew to evacuate. Most of them refused. They stayed at their stations and kept firing until the end. On the second day, humanity lost 6 of its 12 warships. The crews fought until their vessels came apart around them. Pilots rammed crippled ships into enemy targets. Engineers held failing systems together with their bare hands. By the third day, both sides were exhausted. The fleet had been reduced to 7 ships. Earth had the Horizon, 3 surviving warships, and 2 battered orbital platforms. Neither side had expected the battle to last this long. Made a decision that would be remembered for centuries. She ordered the Horizon to charge directly at the flagship. It was a suicide run, or so the thought. But was not planning to die. She was planning to win. The Horizon dove through enemy fire, shields flickering and hull groaning under the strain. Fed targeting data to the weapons systems. Diverted every spare watt of power to the forward guns. Held the ship together through sheer force of will. The Horizon's main guns tore through the flagship's shields and ripped into its reactor. The massive vessel exploded in a blast of light that could be seen from Earth's surface. With their flagship destroyed and their fleet shattered, the surviving ships turned and fled. 3 warships that had expected easy victory ran from a single world that had refused to surrender. They jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared into the void. Silence fell over the battlefield. The space around Earth was filled with wreckage from both fleets. Thousands of humans had died defending their world, but Earth remained free. Sat back in her chair and let out a breath she felt like she had been holding for 3 days. His voice came over the communicator from engineering. He told her that they had won. Archie spoke next. The AI reviewed the battle data and made an observation that no one would ever forget. It said that the Empire had built the Horizon to be a weapon of conquest. It said that they had abandoned it because they believed it was broken beyond repair. It said that in human hands, the ship had become something the Empire never imagined. Archie said that the Horizon had become ultimate. Smiled at the words and responded quietly. He said that the ship was just a tool. He said that it was the humans who flew it and fought for it and refused to give up that made the difference. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy in the following weeks. The Empire had been defeated by a species they had never heard of. Other civilizations took notice. Some sent messages of congratulation. Others sent warnings that the Empire would return for revenge. A few sent offers of alliance. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured through blood and fire and unbreakable will. The small blue planet that had once looked up at the stars in wonder now looked out at them as an equal. The Horizon settled into orbit around Earth, but unbroken, and stood together on the observation deck and watched the sun rise over their world. They had started this journey as scientists and soldiers. They had become something more. They had become the defenders of humanity, and whatever came next, they would face it together.